You've flown on a cheap flight because of a fight most people have never heard about. Southwest Airlines going up against three of the biggest airlines in America with just 3 planes and $148 in the bank. Except it almost didn't happen. On June 17, 1971, a lawyer named Herb Kelleher was standing in front of the Texas Supreme Court with a plane full of hostesses, mechanics, and ticket agents waiting less than a day away from either making history or facing jail. That's not an exaggeration. If he lost this hearing, he could have been arrested for contempt of court the moment a Southwest Airlines plane left the ground. So here's the question worth sitting with. How does a company with 3 planes and $148 in the bank end up fighting 3 of the biggest airlines in America and win? Because that's what this is. Not a story about a low-cost airline. A story about a 4-year war, fought almost entirely in courtrooms, where the winner would decide something you still feel every time you book a flight, whether flying belongs to the rich or to everyone. You already know Southwest Airlines. Cheap fares, no assigned seats, that slightly chaotic boarding process. It feels like it's always existed. One of those brands so familiar you stop asking how it got there. But rewind to 1966, and none of that exists yet. There is no Southwest. There's just a man named Rollin King walking into a San Antonio law office to shut down his failing little charter business. His lawyer, Herb Kelleher, expects a routine liquidation. Instead, King sketches a triangle on a cocktail napkin. Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. A cheap, frequent airline connecting the 3, legally exempt from federal price controls because it would never cross state lines. Kelleher tells him it's insane. Then he agrees to build it anyway. And within 24 hours of getting government approval, the knives come out.
Braniff, Trans-Texas Airways, Continental. 3 airlines that had spent decades protected by a federal system that hadn't approved a single new competitor in 40 years. Not one. Suddenly find themselves staring at a starving upstart with a napkin and a dream. They don't compete with it. They sue it.
A Travis County judge freezes the airline before it ever sells a ticket. What follows isn't one lawsuit. It's more than 30 separate legal battles stretching across 4 years, dragged through state courts, federal courts, and eventually the United States Supreme Court itself. Now think about what that actually costs. Not just money, though there was almost none left. Think about what it costs to keep believing in something for 4 straight years, while the people with power tell you over and over that you don't get to exist. By 1969, the board is done. They vote to shut it down. And this is where you should ask yourself something. If you'd sunk years into an idea, and every court, every rival, every rational signal told you to walk away, would you have stood up in that room? Kelleher did. He told the board he'd cover the legal costs himself, out of his own pocket, and defer every fee until they won. Not because he was certain they would, because he decided quitting wasn't an option. 2 days before launch, in June of 1971, the rivals try one final move, a rogue restraining order, filed just hours before Southwest's first flight was set to take off from Dallas Love Field. Kelleher races to Austin. He argues in an emergency session before the Texas Supreme Court with planes fueled, hostesses in position, and passengers already holding tickets for a flight that legally cannot happen yet. Less than 24 hours before Wheels Up, the court rules in his favor. The order is lifted, by voice, on the spot. The next morning, at 7 a.m., Southwest's first flight leaves the ground. 4 years of litigation, settled in a single overnight sprint. Here's what most people never hear. The war didn't end when the plane started flying. It just moved. By 1972, Southwest is nearly bankrupt again. $143 left in the bank. To survive, they sell one of their 4 planes and then try to keep flying the exact same schedule with one less aircraft. That decision, made out of pure desperation, forces ground crews to turn a plane around unloaded, refueled, reloaded, and back in the air in 10 minutes flat. It becomes Southwest's signature. Not a strategy someone designed on a whiteboard, a survival tactic that worked so well, it built an entire business model around it. Then, in 1973, Braniff drops its fare to $13, trying to bleed Southwest dry once and for all. Southwest's answer isn't to panic. It's a full-page ad that reads, "Nobody's going to shoot us out of the sky for a lousy $13. Then they offer travelers a choice: pay $13 or pay $26 and take home a free bottle of premium liquor. Within months, this scrappy little airline is legally the largest liquor distributor in the state of Texas. There's a strange twist buried at the end of this story, though. Decades later, the same Southwest that fought for the right to exist helped write the rules that keep new competitors out. Different decade, same playbook it once survived. Which maybe says something true about every underdog that wins long enough. The fight for fairness and the fight to stay on top don't always stay the same fight. Somewhere in a Texas courtroom in 1971, a lawyer with no guarantee of winning chose to keep going anyway. That choice is the only reason a cheap seat on a plane is something you can still afford to take for granted. If stories like this, the hidden battles behind the things we use every day, are ones you want more of, consider subscribing. There are more of them worth telling.